All right, everyone, we start off today talking about a fairly major scandal actually out of the U.S. Air Force. It appears that military documents prior to the last election were leaked to groups that were adjacent to the DCCC. So reporting groups had queried military material, and not only was it given to them despite their political connections during an election, link in the description, archived of course. We'll get into a little bit of lie-by structure as well, but legacy media. What a coincidence. They were unredacted in part. Some of it had to do with people claiming sexual assault against military supervisors, etc. The problem is that it involves numerous members of Congress, all of which happen to be Republicans. Now, the lie-by structure part. This is the part that nobody else will analyze because they won't think to. Where did the legacy media outlets that are covering this, other than controlled opposition Fox, of course, with an echo chamber audience, where on their sites are these are links to this particular scandal? Again, classified material, or at least confidential material, depends on the circumstances, pertinent to U.S. military records that are not generally publicly queryable, involving political candidates, were leaked to an exceptionally politicized group for hit piece purposes, which they then proceeded with. Where are the stories on this? They're on like page 2. You have to do a deep dive to even find out about the story. I didn't even get any news tips about this. They're talking about it, but they bury it. So if you go to like CNN, you have to go specifically to the politics section, then you have to go most of the way down to find this. I would think that this is more meaningful as a story than much of what's cluttering up the front page, but hey, it's politically inconvenient because people might question Hong Kong, certain things that have happened politically in the recent past. It's hyper-partisan, and it happens to be the uniparty that has the executive branch right now that would be in hot water over this. Now, of course, we're not exactly sure how this leak occurred. The querying happened and the material was released. More worrisome, though, more troublesome, is that sensitive material there that is confidential to the military and to the people that actually served in the military wasn't even redacted upon release. Now, I seem to recall the U.S. government throwing a bitch fit over and over about unredacted materials being released by any other party, whether or not for political reasons. You remember, with WikiLeaks, Julian Assange reached out to the State Department at the time, then run by Hillary fucking goddamn Clinton, and openly told them, hey, some of our material's been taken. We're hoping to release the material before the rogue party does, so maybe you can help us redact this shit. We'll take the names and stuff out of it. The State Department at the time pretended to be amenable to that and not want to send the CIA in to literally assassinate him, which it did. It didn't assassinate, but it considered the possibility of whether that was feasible. They could have pulled it off too. It's the CIA. Communists always tell me that they're responsible for a dozen nations being overthrown in the last century, so they're pretty efficient. I also like their cocaine. Probably helps them with their job. This is a huge scandal. Again, military records, confidential material was leaked for a political purpose, and it involved the DCCC, the literal fundraising arm of the Democratic Party. This is Watergate level scandal. But I'm not hearing anything about it. It's a very hush-hush story, despite the fact that actually the leaks occurred quite some time ago. There were already queries, and now we're just finding out that more people in Congress had their materials released. Again, these service records of complaints against supervisors and stuff could be potentially pertinent to future criminal or civil proceedings. That's a fairly major data breach. Apparently, some low-level staffer with a political axe to grind was able to look up the paperwork and scan it in and say, oh yeah, you're doing a hit piece on Congressman Sleazebag over there? Well, he's got an R after his name, so I guess he won't mind if we talk about all of his service records. Hey, remember the time that he was, sent to the penal colony because he was dicking himself out behind the barracks or something like that? Could be politically embarrassing. And the fact that it found its way into actual stories on at least a few occasions is even more damning. If the leak had happened and nothing comes of it, so, rudimentary, boring bullshit is sent to the DCCC's reporting apparatus, and they don't end up using it because it's like, well, yes, he served with distinguishment, and he got all high grades on marksmanship and everything else that you have to do if you're in the military. He's a good swimmer. Sometimes he can enjoy a drink a little bit too much, and we had to drag him back to the barracks, but that's about it. So if it's just boring stuff, it doesn't end up, for public consumption, at the very least you can say, well, no harm, no foul. We're sorry that we breached numerous federal codes. We're sorry that someone in the U.S. military decided to breach the confidentiality of the records-keeping process. We're sorry that it was politically motivated and therefore was at least a Watergate-style political attempt. But you could say, in the end it didn't come to anything. But it was released. And it did contain sensitive material, again, pertinent to investigations within the U.S. Air Force itself. Rather embarrassing, by the way, for that particular branch of the military. Are we going to find out that other records from other groups were queried as well when they investigate this, as they are? Because it involves a dozen members of Congress. The people currently in the U.S. House are the ones querying this material now. And I'm not seeing anything about it. Again, other than deep on page B is where you have to go. Do you know how many people actually pay attention to like CNN or MSNBC? Already that's a fairly small pool of people. The number of people who click through to any subpage and don't just scan through a few titles on the front page and feel like they know what's going on in the world, and even if they read the full articles, they won't if they're using those particular sites. You should stick with Styx or watch some other independent commentary. Expand your mind a little bit. You'll get more truth that way, that's for sure. A little bit more intelligent and accurate analysis of political and social intrigue. My God, how many people actually read it? 10? I wouldn't even be surprised if that was the sum total. Just look at their Twitter engagement if you don't believe me. Ratios as far as the eye can see. Now, this is not only a scandal, it's a fairly high level. I'd give it an 8 out of 10 on the scandal scale, actually. Again, should be front page news. There's nothing else going on right now. I saw on the front page, South Korean diplomats in India were doing a tribal dance. This is stunning and brave. I think they were doing it on TikTok as well, so it shows you where the loyalties lie. That's front page newsworthy. The fact that military records were leaked for a political purpose to a group directly adjacent to the DCCC, apparently, that's just slow news. Yawn, everybody. It's a boring day. I'm tired. Let's go and take a nap. You remember that shit posting from years ago? Man. And then you've got the cover-up aspect. That makes it even worse. And when they do this, when you see primo shit buried on news sites, it means it's significant enough that we didn't have plausible deniability to not report on it, but we decided to make sure that we didn't report on it to as many people as possible because we don't want people seeing the story. It happens all the goddamn time. By the way, literally every legacy media outlet does this. That's about all. Peace out.